Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Lenny Meletiadou. I am a senior lecturer at the Yale School of Business and Law, and I'm here to discuss a funded project I implemented at USPL this academic year. It's the IFAP project, that is Inclusive Formative Assessment Practices in Action. This is basically a longitudinal intervention study that was funded by LMU. It lasted one whole academic year, but today I will present findings from the first academic semester that it was implemented, that is autumn 2021-2022. So the current project aimed to develop and pilot the inclusive formative assessment practices in action scheme in tertiary education. So there are very few long-term studies which have implemented more than one formative assessment methods in higher education, with the aim of exploring their impact on students' motivation and writing performance. So the current project intended to promote international interdisciplinary collaboration, as it aimed to develop students' academic and professional skills in various subject areas. Of course, initially we try to do that in our business school, but our aim is to expand it in other schools as well. So the aim was to empower all students, including multilingual and low achieving students, to achieve their full potential and make their dreams come true, and ensure that all student voices can be heard. The current study examined the use of peer assessment and self-assessment as inclusive assessment methods that promote undergraduate students' writing performance and willingness to write and learn in business and management education. So inclusive assessment refers to an approach to assessment in terms of which individual learners' needs, differences, and tastes are taken into consideration as far as possible to ensure that all students have an opportunity to succeed, focusing on their strengths rather than stressing their weaknesses, with the aim of unraveling areas for improvement and supporting them throughout this process. So as lecturers welcome extremely diverse cohorts nowadays, inclusive assessment does not necessarily refer to students with special educational needs or disabled learners. Higher education institutions are increasingly concerned about adopting inclusive teaching and assessment practices to cater for the needs of multilingual and multicultural students who should work together and succeed first in their academic context and later in an increasingly complex workplace which has high expectations from individuals who wish to find career-enhancing positions and succeed in their professional lives. So basically, in terms of the current study, self-assessment was used since it is one of the most popular forms of alternative assessment methods currently used in higher education worldwide, and peer assessment was used again as an inclusive assessment tool to enhance students' writing skills and motivation towards writing and learning. So let me offer you a brief description of the study. So we had 200 undergraduate level 4 students who attended 2 undergraduate modules for 2 academic semesters. As I told you, I will refer to the first module that the students attended. So the overall aim was to use peer assessment and self-assessment to develop the students' writing skills, taking into consideration their individual differences and ensuring that all students had an opportunity to succeed. So students received a brief training in peer assessment and were then involved in anonymous group peer assessment using a rubric. Students were finally involved in self-assessment before handing in their final assignment, and were asked to write a reflective report. So in terms of this year-long project, 200 level 4 GSPL students were trained and then encouraged to use peer assessment and self-assessment in the first semester in terms of one module to develop their reflective skills, and to help them better understand the assessment criteria. In the second semester, the same students were asked to use again first peer assessment and then self-assessment to develop their self-management skills. The aim was to develop students' professional skills, for example, their collaborative skills, to develop their team, their ability to work as a team, flexibility, as well as intrinsic motivation, self-regulation, problem solving, stress management, and self-starting. So this scheme also encouraged the use of translanguaging and English as a lingua franca. So here you can see how we implemented IFAB at level 4. My inspiration was to explore the kind of benefits that such a scheme can have on students' writing performance and motivation, and to implement it in higher education after making all the necessary adjustments. So I collected pre and post tests for the first and only post-test for the second semester, and explored any improvement in students' performance by comparing marks and by analyzing text, taking into consideration indicators of text quality. Of course, at this point, I would like to point out that I was not able to analyze findings, to analyze students' marks from the second semester, as well as analyze tests. This is a second step that I will do during the summer. So basically, I compared the improvement of those 200 students who attended a similar module but did not engage in formative assessment methods in their classes. I also used a survey and focus group discussions to explore students' overall attitude towards the scheme. So let me tell you that writing is a process learned through consistent writing, assessment, and feedback. And it presupposes that students know what good writing is. So using self-assessment allows students to detect what they need to do to improve their work. And this is why we have used it in the current implementation. Even though some researchers suggested that self-assessment is a valuable learning strategy that could improve students' academic achievement, attitudes, and self-regulation, there are some other researchers, like Andrade, for example, who report the opposite in terms of writing skills enhancement. So, however, they confess that this is the case when students do not have the necessary support and guidance while revising their work. This is why we as educators should support the students while they try to implement new assessment methods. So the aim of sustained participation is self-assessment and peer assessment, as is the case in the present implementation. Is to detect and rectify learners' mistakes while they're working on their assignment, and therefore improve their self-regulated learning skills. So effective implementation of peer assessment and self-assessment necessitates sharing and negotiating assessment criteria before the learning process to allow students to understand their expected learning outcomes and organize their work accordingly. So in large mixed ability classes, peer assessment reveals knowledge gaps, expands learners' resources, and produces more self-confident learners with higher achievements. So let me tell you what happened with this study, which basically implemented peer assessment and self-assessment for one academic semester, that is 12 weeks at GSBL in terms of one academic module. So there was improvement in students' writing performance by 30% in the first semester, comparing the pre and students' performance from the pre towards the post-tests. When comparing the students' performance in two modules which run in parallel, one used IFAP, that is peer assessment and self-assessment, and the other did not. We could see that students in the experimental group that used formative assessment methods increased their performance by 10% in just 12 weeks, which was also a statistically significant difference. Because as you can see, the effective size was 0.58, which is medium towards large effect size. So the study outcomes indicated that there was a significant improvement in students' writing performance, but there was also an improvement in terms of students' motivation. So by exploring students' attitude towards the use of these two formative assessment methods, and we explored that by asking students to write regularly in a journal, and also we conducted we asked for students' feedback through Mentimeter every 2 weeks. So we gathered all these findings and we conducted some thematic analysis to identify students' attitude towards peer assessment, their use of peer assessment and self-assessment. And we realized that students enjoyed working closely with their peers as the group approach facilitated, because we did a group peer assessment. So students anonymously provided feedback to students' writings working as a group. This facilitated a stronger bonding, offering several opportunities for dialogue and reciprocal learning. So at first, students seemed reluctant to engage in peer assessment because they doubted that this would really make a difference, and because they had to devote time and effort. However, once they were engaged in peer assessment, they realized that they were able to develop their critical thinking and reflective skills, and also they improved their sense of an audience. So students understood the academic standards of the module better due to the use of peer assessment and then of self-assessment at the end, the assessment criteria and how these were applied. Of course, the lecturer's self-support was valuable during this procedure. I will now offer some recommendations. I believe that students should be guided to increase their self-confidence and their confidence in others, as everybody can, for example, sometimes make mistakes, even us, their lecturers. Okay, so it is the process that matters, and through that process, our studies show that students can enhance their writing skills in a statistically significant way, despite the risks, despite the mistakes and pitfalls of this relatively new but heavily criticized approach. So I believe that voluntary participation of students should be promoted and helping students to enhance their interpersonal skills, increasing bonding and fruitful conversation with a dose of healthy, of course, disagreement. So peer assessment should therefore be used formatively. It cannot substitute their lecturer's feedback. It should be used as an additional form of feedback. And it might also allow students to improve their writing skills and motivation, because learners are allowed to write in an interactive and thus more interesting setting and develop a variety of skills. Of course, there are important limitations, as of course the current study used a relatively small sample in a specific context, and I believe that future studies should use a more experimental design, including a control group, which may use, for example, a more traditional teacher-centered learning approach, or another alternative assessment method, for example, portfolios, okay, to compare their benefits for the students and their reactions during the intervention. I also believe that future studies should also examine the impact of peer assessment on postgraduate students, because I believe that they also need support when they work rather isolated, for example, writing their dissertations without continuous guidance. So I also believe that students should be guided and invited to participate in supervised mock rating and mock discussions during the peer assessment implementation to demonstrate their limits when supporting their comments and explaining their choices. So training before and possibly during the implementation may be necessary to support the students. Also, more flexible and personalized learning and multiple feedback tends to minimize any side effects of peer assessment and allow students to engage in peer assessment in many ways and find the one that works best for them, because there's no ideal kind of peer assessment. We should be flexible. Also, the role of the lecturer as facilitator is key to the success of the exercise. So therefore, promoting a safe, non-judgmental, friendly environment is essential. So, and to enhance the inclusivity of peer assessment, lecturers should collaborate and exchange ideas and solutions to problems that may arise. So to conclude, implementing peer assessment and self-assessment in higher education are two valuable learning experiences for both students and their facilitators. Therefore, it is regarded as vital by researchers to enhance the sustainability of a learning context in the 21st century, one that promotes self-reliance rather than passive acceptance of knowledge provided by experts, that is, the educators. Therefore, peer assessment and self-assessment are sine qua non for the preparation of work-ready graduates who value inclusivity, teamwork, and self-reliance in higher educational institutions worldwide. So I would like to thank you for your attention. I welcome your feedback. Please don't hesitate to send me an email if you are interested in inclusive formative assessment methods and if you would like to implement them in your classes as well. Thank you.